event of why we're here, pal?
I sure am, pal. I'm ready to just cut right to the chase, pal. I want to hear you talk about this because, pal, we had this written down the agenda months ago. And if, in case you don't know what we're alluding to, it's the whole thing. Tag team wrestling was better in the Attitude Era, or why tag team wrestling was better back in the day, pal. Pal, since this was your suggestion, I want you to talk to us. Explain to us, the listener. Explain to me. Explain to all our great listeners listening to us right now in their earphones, out in their cars, on YouTube. Why was tag team wrestling better in the Attitude Era?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the golden era of tag team wrestling, the Attitude Era, that period from what, like 98 to like 2001. Mm-hmm. And for one, it was the stars that were involved, right? And it was, in a lot of people's respects, a lot of people would argue that was the most captivating part of the show at times. Like, there were pay-per-views that you could argue were carried by like a tag team ladder match featuring the Hardys and Edge and Christian, or the Dudleys, or all three of them. And it was riveting stuff. And I just feel like that WWE, or wrestling in general, has never really had another peak in terms of tag team wrestling. Like, yeah, AEW, maybe they got kind of close when they had the Young Bucks and the Lucha Bros and all those guys when they first started, and the tag team division was really hot. But then it was like, wait, who won the tag team titles? Hangman and Scorpio Sky, like 3 months in, and it's like, what? Like, I digress.
So uncensored powering, or like Hangman and Omega just win them for 9 months, and it's like, you have the best tag team division in the world by far. Like, you got so many amazing teams. The Jurassic Express was, good at the time. Young Bucks, Lucha Bros, all of them, SCU, etc.
FTR, yeah,
bottled it. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, then there was the period in NXT with the Revival and DIY and American Alpha. That was like 2015, 16, 17, in that range. Lots of good tag team wrestling going on there. But I mean, aside from that, and yeah, like tag teams did main event WrestleMania last year. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and the Usos. Yeah, but that, I mean, there hasn't really been a consistent like division. The division for throughout the PG era for the past 10, 11 years now has literally just been the New Day and the Usos, and then whatever random like tag team, Cesaro and Tyson Kidd, or Cesaro and Sheamus, pal, and
the Bar, pal.
Yeah, the Bar. Like, in the Attitude Era, it was the Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, and they were at the top of that division. And then you had, the New Age Outlaws and the APA and all these other great tag teams. That was, to me, the era, man. I mean, all these great tag teams, they could main event. They stole the show at WrestleMania 17. They stole the show at SummerSlam 2000 with the great ladder matches and TLC matches, and just the sheer on-screen content. Mm-hmm. Those matches were incredible and could not be stopped. And it was just a forefront, a focal point of the show, really. It was like, okay, what's Austin going to do? Austin's doing this. Oh, Sable's doing this. Okay, then, yeah, we got to have the Hardys, Edge and Christian have a crazy, like, Crash TV just match with weapons flying everywhere. And yeah, and those guys, all six of those guys, I'm almost done. All six of those guys, all future first ballot Hall of Famers and legends. So yeah.
I have two responses to this. Do you want the really like the actual an analytical sort of point, or do you want the point which is what one or two commenters are going to comment?
Go ahead with the second. Let's see the second.
Yeah. So last week in our debate, you disqualified something that Adam Copeland, Edge, was involved in WWE, like something that was legitimately just like historically good.
I knew you were going to bring this up. I knew this. I knew this was coming.
In AEW, he lost Aura.
I knew this was coming.
So that was last week. This week, when something Adam Copeland, Edge in WWE a bunch of years ago, that's now being praised, and we're making that a content and a topic in our discussion.
Right.
And we're praising that, and we're not disqualifying it because. So there's a double standard here.
Oh,
last week we were doing one thing with Adam Copeland. This week we're doing another.
Okay.
I just want to just raise that. So a commenter's going to raise it.
Okay. Let me clarify this for a moment. Okay. We're discussing Prime Edge. We're discussing Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the ladder. Okay. As I laid out to you at WrestleMania 37, Vince was like, Roman and Edge, I don't know if that's going to be a good one-on-one WrestleMania quality match. We need Bryan Danielson in there to make it exciting. And I'm sure Edge was like, yeah, let's bring Bryan Danielson in. Like let's make this match as exciting as possible. Now you painted it incorrectly that Bryan Danielson had some mystery power that he could just insert himself into matches, pal. Like he's
on the creative. We discussed that last week. Carry on.
Yeah, he's on the creative team, but he's not Vince McMahon or Triple H, where he could just book himself into do whatever he wants, pal. But I digress. He's not Vince Russo in WCW 2000 with a pencil booking himself to be world champion, pal. No. This is
the same Daniel Bryan who fired CM Punk in AEW. So like,
yeah, this is AEW. This is AEW, not WWE.
This guy does pull strings clearly back.
Tony Khan gave him more power than Vince did. I'm sure, pal. I'm sure.
I'm not going to argue with that, but anyway, carry on.
So, I mean, Tony Khan's the kind of guy that'd be like, yeah, you're Bryan Danielson. You're a great wrestler, pal. Here's all the power in the world. I mean, he gave the Young Bucks a vice president. Come on. Enough of that. I'm shutting that point down immediately, pal. Vince McMahon would never in a million years appoint somebody like the Young Bucks to be running his company. I digress. Back to Edge. So like I said, this is prime Edge we're talking about. This is not Edge at 51 years old, jumping off a steel cage for my entertainment, breaking his leg on an AEW pay-per-view. Okay, we're talking about prime Edge, pal. So prime Edge is here. I love prime Edge. Then there's Snowflake Edge that blocks people on Twitter that, it's like, you have to love me, rah, rah. I'm 51 years old. I'm still wrestling. Appreciate me. No. I like prime heel Edge that was slapping John Cena's daddy, Maggle. He's slapping John Cena's daddy all around the Impact Zone, pal.
That's great. I'm glad you addressed that because that was going to come up.
Yeah.
Someone was going to raise that. I just wanted to address that. You mentioned and this is more the analytical point now, shifting gears, pal, as Michael Cole would say, switching gears, John, Corey. Back to the topic we were discussing with the tag teams. You did mention it, how, nowadays, as we know, WrestleMania 39, there was a WrestleMania main event for one of the biggest WrestleManias of all time. I mean, obviously, nowadays, every WrestleMania each year is the biggest one ever, like with numbers and revenue and all this business. But last year's WrestleMania was the biggest ever up to that point in many ways. Really good WrestleMania, and it was main evented by a tag match.
Yeah.
A good old classic, undisputed tag titles. The Usos, one of the greatest, how do you want to rank it, a couple of tag teams
Top
ever.
5, yeah.
Versus Zayn and Owens, who, I mean, in the modern era, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are one of the best tag teams in the modern era. They're not with the New Day, they're not at that level or anything all time, but they're pretty damn good. They've done quite a bit as a tag team. They've been involved in some massive, big time stuff. So it main evented, and the follow up to that is, okay, well, what happened after the WrestleMania 39 main event? Not much for the tag teams. Like, it sort of petered out. So any argument I want to stick my fork into the ground and try and crucify you for, pal, like, I can't really within good faith, because within a month, most of them weren't even on screen as far as like Zayn, Owens, and they did like some Pittsburgh street fight like 4 months later, like Extreme Rules or something. But yeah, the tag team's main event of WrestleMania in the modern era. That's something I will say to counter you, pal, with the debate.
Yeah, I mean, then the counterpoint for me is like that WrestleMania 17 TLC match is the best tag team match ever. The most high profile, biggest match. I think we could both agree that that's the best match from WrestleMania 17, right? That match stole the show.
Yeah.
Like, you want to go, like, Austin Rock was bigger, obviously. We're not even discussing that. Bigger, more commercial, box office, yeah. Like, in terms of bell to bell, what match was better on WrestleMania 17 than that? Let's be honest here. Like,
I want to have a bigger discussion, because like that match, as we all know, we've all seen TLC. You've seen it. You've just said this you've watched that match 50 times.
At least. Like, I watch it every year, a couple times a year.
Yeah. That match is the biggest like car crash in a good way the World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment had ever seen to that point that I'm aware of. Like, you had the match where, the 99 Royal Rumble power, The Rock was hitting unprotected chair shots to Foley. Stuff like that's different.
That was
like
bad.
That was just blatant CTE in front of our eyes on pay-per-view. Then there was Hell in a Cell 98 power, Taker through Mankind. That was very different as well. That was just two super extreme bumps, and it was shocking for the time. TLC 2 was literally a 9-person car crash with the 6 wrestlers and then Lita, Rhino, and Spike Dudley. Was that match? And this is going to sound negative. I don't mean this at all. But like that match happening at the stage of WrestleMania 17, as great as it was, as big as that match was that good for wrestling in the long term? That now just that could have influenced like a lot of just car crash wrestling?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, because ECW. I mean,
that's true. But that's ECW though. Like, that's not WrestleMania 17.
Right. No, but I mean, like that. What I'm saying is that style of wrestling was already
Mm,
existed.
true,
You know,
true.
like people were still doing it. You know, that may have influenced maybe a few people watched that and was like, oh, okay, I want to do some crazy stunt now. You know,
Mm,
but I think ECW had a big enough footprint.
yeah,
I
yeah.
would say like ECW has such a big footprint. I'll just tell you off the tangent story here. I was having breakfast with one of my coworkers like maybe like 3-4 months ago, and I was like, oh, so what do you watch, like you binge like Netflix or whatever? He's like, I watch old ECW shows. And he's like maybe like 5-6 years older than me, and I was like, ECW, like the wrestling, you watch like ECW wrestling, like really? You sit there and watch old ECW shows, like okay, like like I think the footprint's a little bit bigger than
Mm,
maybe we could both imagine.
yeah,
Because we didn't, neither one of us really lived that time frame.
yeah,
But ECW, just to say, ECW influenced all the garbage that we see nowadays, like the
yeah.
the the indie feds and like the combat zone wrestlings, where you got like people flying from the top of rafters, landing on their shoulder, destroying their collarbone. New Jack throwing people off of what is that? The latcher sad. What's the word? Satcher.
Oh
I
gosh.
can't remember the word, but he's throwing people off like 40 feet. They're landing on the turnbuckle. Like,
Oh no! Now there's this one promotion which, like on my JT Instagram account, I barely log into anymore. I'll go on and like the top of my feed, I don't know the promotion's name, which is probably a good thing. I don't want to shout them out because some of the stuff they put out, I'm like, oh my god, it is literally like the biggest garbage wrestling. Like they got an actual ring. It's not just like a backyard thing. They got an actual ring, actual like they're booking out buildings, whatever. And there might be 100 people in attendance, but yeah, wrestlers are shattering light tubes, falling on glass, like shoot bleeding everywhere. I'm like, they be making God knows what to do this. Like,
$100.
these wrestlers are dying in front of my eyes, like doing this garbage wrestling trash. And this is what's anyway. So yeah, I just want to raise that. I don't really believe that the TLC 2 match at WrestleMania 17 was bad. I'm just raising that as a thing.
Yeah, of
It's like,
course,
that match
yeah.
was insane, and like the legacy that match had as being such a big match at a big stage. But yeah, back to the point at hand, pal. Tag team wrestling. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the way tag team wrestling was presented in that time, really, late 90s, early 2000s, really the golden era of wrestling. Tag teams had their place. They did their thing so well. Tag team wrestling, it wasn't forced. It was organic. You had great talent involved. You had Hall of Famers involved in this. The question, I just raised, in 10, 20 years' time, do we look back on maybe the 2020 to 2025 era or sometime around now as another boom for tag team wrestling? I mean, we're probably going to look back on this time period, not just with tag teams, but with everything, as like a second coming boom in hindsight anyway, like compared to where wrestling was. But yeah, it's a good discussion, pal. I'm happy we discussed this, pal. Blistering debate.
Yeah, and I have to say this: we'd be remiss not to mention the late '80s, early '90s
Yeah.
WWF. Where you had like the Legion of Doom was there, the Road Warriors. They were there for a little bit. The Hart Foundation, the
Demolition.
Rockers, Demolition. Yeah, you had just Money Inc. Like then, there was a big focus on tag team wrestling. But like a lot of it was a sham. Like it was just like, okay, here's these characters. Here's Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant, pal. They're having a match with Hulk Hogan and what's his name from Friday? Zeus.
Oh, I'm
Zeus.
yeah, Zeus. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his real name, but yeah, Hulk Hogan and Zeus, pal. Like tag team wrestling, the in-ring quality and the star power. The star power was there and the characters were there, but in the Attitude Era, they had everything: the in-ring quality, the star power, the charisma, the Hall of Fame talents. Like so much so that like the Hardy Boys and the Dudleys in particular, because Edge and Christian kind of differentiated themselves from the tag team. They become such single stars that I don't think it happens with them quite as much. But like the Hardys, even like 25 years later, people know them as like a tag team, and maybe the Usos will have that kind of staying power.
Yeah,
we'll see. I'm sure they will, but I think the Hardys are like the coolest, most known tag team of all time. Like I don't even think that's up for debate. The most popular tag team, most well recognized tag team, is the Hardys by and large, I would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. So yeah, it's just an interesting one with tag team wrestling generally. Because I mean, the thing you raised the '80s. The one thing I love about the '80s, especially, I mean, this hasn't gone away fully, but you watch some of those '80s tag matches, and like the real, I guess you say the theatrics of like pro wrestling, where like the referee's looking away here. Oh, the bad guys are really getting a hold of the good guy.
Yeah.
Boo! You monster! Oh, the damage has been done, Gorilla. Like all this sort of stuff. Jesse the Body, and like they're like hamming on. Like some of that stuff is just like golden age. Like that's just wrestling, pal. Like the dastardly heels beating up the good guys. The referee's distracted, looking off in the audience, pal. Oh, what's Ted DiBiase doing with the championship at ringside? Let me look at him for 2 minutes. Oh, Andre Giant's beating the piss out of the babyface. Like that's wrestling, pal.
Yeah,
Great stuff.
yeah, that's what we love about pro wrestling, pal. Well, with that being said, I guess I'll close with this. Tag team wrestling now, like, it's kind of like a novelty act at this point. Like, it's just there. They have the championships. They just like took away the unifications at WrestleMania. But the tag team division is not making that much noise. It's not a focal point of like either company in AEW or WWE. It's just yeah, like I said, like a novelty. Like okay, these two singles wrestlers are struggling. Let's put them together. Yeah. Or there's some story to be told here. Let's have Roman Reigns tag team with The Rock, pal, on the road to WrestleMania 42, or whatever the case may be.
Look what they did with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. It was a bit like, okay, how do we fill in the next year and a bit before they have a massive WrestleMania main event or co-main event match next year's WrestleMania? Let's have them be a tag team for like 6 months. Then they can win their titles. They can then tease their friction. Oh, they turn on each other. Who would have thought? And you can play that out, and that's the sort of stuff that gets added to the Superkick Studios 20-minute video on this in 3 years. The Wrestling Bios video, the Wrestling Gifts video. Look at the long-term storytelling they did here. Look what they did with this. They were a tag team. It added to their story. Like, it's all just a part of the story arc, really, pal. The magic of Paul Levesque at the start.